Hey guys, welcome back. Robocraft Early Access coverage. This is episode 72. I'm Enigmaeus, and today we're rebuilding the Pretty Hate Machine. Rebuilding as in building from scratch. We decided after a number of matches with the new hover physics in place that things just weren't working out. Really, it's kind of the position of the thrusters that we had. The thrusters on the Pretty Hate Machine were on the back of the bot, and the way that everything was built, there was really no option to move them to the front without a really substantial overhaul. So I decided that it would be easier if we just started over, applying a lot of the things that we've learned since we built the original Pretty Hate Machine, and go from there. So we're doing the extra wide spine on this one, 5 wide, because it seems to work pretty well for us. It's a pretty robust way to start a bot. And what I really wanted to do was invest a little bit of time, again, messing around with the position of various different things. Move the thrusters around, put some rudders on, move the rudders around, just see what we could come up with in terms of something that's stable, something that we can control well, something that handles well. Very, very difficult to do. Especially when you consider that things are going to change as we build out the bot. As we add weight to the bot, the handling characteristics are going to change. But the least we can do is, start out with something that we're going to be happy with. And then if it changes on down the line, we can maybe, add some steering thrusters or other things that we can apply to correct any situations that arise as a result of the change of the weight and the distribution and all these other things. So today is just about testing a few different things. Now, I'm kind of not so sure that rudders are the way to go. We kind of determined previously that they were mostly just kind of muting the handling characteristics. The way that we had them originally set up on the Pretty Hate Machine, we had kind of a swept wing design for the thrusters, and didn't work so well. But this time we're changing things up a little bit. Things are going to be a little bit different, so we decided to try it again. Now this is the most basic iteration of something that has thrusters and hover blades. No rudders, obviously. You see how it does that little jiggle thing every once in a while? As we're moving forward, it'll do a little jiggle. I think that's because it's trying to reflect the terrain, the changes in the terrain, and it's not doing a very good job. It's trying to do too much. A hover passing over little wobbles in the terrain shouldn't be moving at all. It should be a very, very smooth kind of thing, but I guess part of discouraging people from just all using hovers and ignoring everything else is making things a little bit wonkier than they need to be. So the main drawback to this design, and related more to weight than anything else, is that you tap it once and it almost wants to like flip around in a full 360, and that's because we've got big honking thrusters and tier 10 hover blades on this wee little chassis. There's not a whole lot going on. I placed his rudder and it said it was colliding with stuff, so we just pull it off, reattach, everything's fine. I didn't expect this to work so well. We've learned that rudders on the front like this are a recipe for disaster. You can see all we're doing is pressing forward, and that's it. We've got corkscrew going on. We've got all kinds of stuff. Something to do with rudders on the front makes it want to do weird things. Now this is the problem. You saw we stopped and it slowly drifted back down to the ground. That's the only way to recover once it starts doing that flipping and flopping all over the place. When you're in the middle of a match, you don't have time to necessarily to stop moving and wait for the bot to settle down before you start moving again. That's when people just kind of glom onto you and start shooting the crap out of you, and you have no control over the bot until you do it, so you're kind of screwed. Now this, putting the rudders in the middle, on the surface didn't seem like a bad idea, but you'll notice we'll kind of travel forward for a little bit, and then it won't take long. The bot actually starts to tip down on the front a little bit. There we go. It's tipping ever so slightly. The downside to that is that when it does that, you lose forward velocity. It actually slows down. It doesn't travel forward as fast as when it's just traveling flat across like this, which kind of makes for, not a very good situation, because again, we're not doing anything special to cause it to do this. We're just moving forward, and it goes forward for a few seconds fine, and then it just starts to tip down on its own. And that's when we realize that, this isn't any good either. So the whole idea is that we should be able to hold forward and just go. That's it's kind of like when you're building a flyer, and the whole idea is that you should, be able to just hold forward and maintain level flight. If it's not doing that, it means you're having to spend too much mental energy trying to figure out how to keep your bot stable, and less energy trying to figure out, where's the enemy, how's my aim, what should I be doing now in a match. So we kind of want the forward thing to work. So this here setup with the rudders on the back and the thrusters on the back is not bad. It offers the advantage you'll see shortly here, the ability to just kind of fly off of cliffs and maintain level flight. But here again is a problem. All we're doing that's causing us to do that little corkscrew kind of thing is turning a little bit. And you can't really have a bot that you can't turn without having to worry about it flipping over. That's, earlier when we were building hovers and we had the rudders on it, and it was that kind of situation where we would get flipped over, and then because we had the rudders on it, we could right the bot very easily. We could just kind of basically do a little bit of a flip, and we'd be right side up. It was, oh, that's fantastic. The rudders help us right the bot that much easier, but it's a double-edged sword. It doesn't really matter how easily the bot allows you to right itself when you're on your back to flip over right side up. If it's the rudders that are allowing you to do that are the rudders that put you on your back in the first place. So it's not, it sounds like it's a fantastic thing, but it's really not. It's not very good at all. So now this is basically the change that I kind of had a feeling from the beginning that I was going to be making, and that's moving the thrusters to the front and on the underside, because for weight, for one thing, putting the weight below the hover blades, but also the guns are going to be on top again, so we don't necessarily want to have to shoot around these great big giant thrusters. So we put them underneath, and then we'll have basically the top for guns and only guns. And again, with the rudders on the front, immediately it starts doing the loop-de-loops. Not really what we're looking for, but for the sake of testing, for the sake of being a little bit thorough, we did it. We can say that we did it. Now, this isn't intended to be empirical testing to determine all of the mechanics of flight. That's, some people are really into that kind of thing. They'll do it eventually, and that's fantastic. This is just kind of thinking of the different things that we might like to try, and then giving a quick test in the practice map to see if they really work. Now, this is not bad here, what we've got going on, which is not necessarily surprising. You can see we've got stable forward movement. It's not tilting, it's not tipping, it's not doing anything. But then as soon as we try and turn, when we're at full speed, immediately we're on our back. It's like we just can't win. Immediately it wants to flip us over and put us on our back. So maybe if we had a rudder that was straight up and down, that would assist. Maybe that would make it a little bit less likely that we'd end up doing all this rolling over onto our back. That's more CPU and more space that I'm willing to invest, specifically because we are trying to keep a relatively low profile with this bot. We don't necessarily want a big beefy bot. We want something that's going to be able to move in and out of cover quickly as we can, with guns that aren't as likely to obstruct themselves, shooting into the back of the guns in front of them. We don't necessarily want to be putting a big vertical rudder on this anywhere for any reason. So we've got the ability here, which is a little bit misleading. You see how we just fly off the cliff, and we're basically, to some extent, a flyer right now. We don't have much control in terms of what we want to do when we're flying at this altitude. And what's more importantly, if we want to try and correct that, if we're flying along and we want to try and change direction, we're screwed. So it's kind of a one-shot deal. You're more of a glider at that point than a flyer. And you can see we kind of decided that we wanted to regain control. We had to stop, and we had to wait for the bot to settle down. So it's kind of nice. It's fun in concept, but in practice, in actual doing things in matches, it's another double-edged sword. So we've basically determined now that we aren't going to get very far with the thrusters on the front and the rudders on the back. So the last kind of test that I wanted to do was going back to what we had on the original Pretty Hate machine with the swept wing kind of rudders, where we have them on the sides and they're extending from the front to the back instead of from, you know, the middle out kind of thing. And the reason why I wanted to try this again is because in the original iteration of the Pretty Hate Machine, the thrusters were on the back. So as we were learning, thrusters on the front and thrusters on the back produce different outcomes depending on what's going on with the rudders and whether or not you have rudders at all. So we take a look at this. They can be relatively compact. They don't have to be sticking out too far. But if this kind of gives us stable motion without doing the flipping and the flopping all over the place, then that's a good thing. Really, that's all we want, is we want a bot that turns well, unlike the Pretty Hate Machine that we just dismantled to free up the black blocks for this one, without necessarily having to deal with all kinds of consequences for having the components on that we have. So that there flipping over was my fault because I flew over a cliff. Just to see what would happen if I flew over a cliff. We can't necessarily blame that on the rudders and say, well, that's proof that we don't want to use the rudders in this case, because the solution to that is to just not fly over cliffs. Or at least if you're going to fly over a cliff, be careful and not go over at full speed and try and turn as you're going down. So I'm not too concerned about that, but you can see we've got stable forward motion. There's a little bit of wobble just because it's adjusting to the terrain as we go by. It turns well. It turns much better than the Pretty Hate Machine that we just dismantled. And it doesn't do the flipping and flopping as we're turning. So, ironically, the only change that we made over the original Pretty Hate Machine is we moved the thrusters from the back to the front, and then we reinstated, so to speak, the rudders in the swept wing kind of format. And that should be pretty close to all we want, or all we need. You can see we kind of were able to right ourselves a little bit after we did that flip, but part of that is due to the weight distribution because we've got the thrusters dangling off the bottom. So as a chassis base goes, this is not too bad. I can work with this. I'm pretty happy with this. So the next episode, we're going to carry on building with this chassis in mind. We're going to make a couple of tweaks to what we've already got in place. You'll see some of those as we go back into the garage, just kind of moving a few things around. And then we're going to try and get everything done. I would like to do it in one video for the rebuild, but you never know how long these things are going to take. So we'll take it and we'll play it by ear. We've also got the beginner's guide that I'm working on. Those things take a little while. Any kind of guide, if done properly, is going to take longer than, you know, a build or a match footage video. We've got the Panther Bee that we're going to continue building as soon as we have the CPU to do so. We've got all kinds of stuff going on, so if you want to be notified when I add those videos, the easiest way to do that is to subscribe to my channel and or follow me on social media. Links for social media always in the information box below the video. Please leave your comments and feedback. Thanks for watching, guys, and take care.